You know how when you finish reading a book and you really just want someone to talk about it with, and you can't because nobody else that you know has read the same book, has the same interest in books. I mean, reading is kind of an individual thing, right? Well, that's how I'm feeling right now because I just finished reading The Beholder by Ryan La Sala, and I just want someone to talk about it with. I finished it last night, and I have thoughts, and I want to share them. I don't really have anybody to share them with. I'm going to share them with you guys, and if you are watching this now and you've read this book, if you plan to read this book, if future you, a long time from when this book is published, decides to read this book, leave your thoughts in the comments so that I can read them later. First of all, I'm going to start off with a summary, just a brief summary, and you can probably get the summary just by reading the back of the book or, going on Goodreads, but I'm still going to share a brief summary. Then I'm going to talk about the themes that I take away from this book, and then I'm going to talk about who I think would enjoy this book, and then I'm going to go into some spoilery talk where I'm going to share my thoughts. So if you have not read it and you plan to read it, that spoilery section you're going to want to avoid. Okay? Okay, so we are introduced to our main character right away. His name is Ethan, and he is at a party. It's one of those it parties where, you feel like it's sort of an exclusive guest list. And we have a little bit of imposter syndrome right away because the narrator's voice, which is Ethan's inner thoughts, talk about how he had to steal a suit to go to the party. They talk about how the couch that he's sitting on, or he's thinking about this, is more expensive than a year's worth of his rent. So you can imagine we've got some imposter syndrome going on here, and with a party like this, you can imagine that the people that are there, the other guests, they probably feel really special too that they're there. They probably feel like they're part of an exclusive group. And they're referred to as the patrons. So there's a lot of art references in this book. And so you have the artist, you have the patron. So this is kind of the vibe that we're getting. Ethan is invited to this party from his boss, whose name is Uller, and he's sort of a family friend. He bought the business that Ethan's family owned when Ethan's parents were killed, and it was just Ethan's grandmother, and she couldn't carry on the business. Now, Ethan is a young guy. It's a young adult story, so I imagine him as a teenager. And even in the book, it's described as people think he looks older than he actually is. So that's kind of where we're starting on this. Now, at this party, he has to escape from these people for a little while, and he runs into the bathroom to hide, just to get away for a minute. There's a knock at the door, and he opens the door, and there's a guy there that's telling him to stay in the bathroom, and that he'll come back for him when it's safe. So, you imagine being weirded out by this, right? Well, Ethan is, and then he starts hearing things going on outside, and this commotion lasts, and he hides out in the bathroom. The guy that said he was going to come back for him never comes back, but eventually the next morning, Ethan leaves the bathroom, walks out into this apartment, and he sees that everybody's dead. What do you do in that situation? You go home, right? So he goes home. He can't find his grandmother, and he's looking for answers. So the story takes off there where you have him trying to find answers. But the guy that was there at the party and the boss are still going to be involved in the story. The guy does show up again and forms kind of a relationship with Ethan where the two of them are trying to figure out what's going on and what happened at the party. This guy seems to know more than Ethan does about what's going on, and Ethan contacts his former boss to try to get answers too. So we spend the rest of the story trying to figure out what's going on. one thing to know is that Ethan has a sort of supernatural ability. When he looks into a mirror, or actually any other reflective surface, he can see time sort of rewind, and he can see what the mirror reflected throughout the past. So he's, going to places, trying to figure out places where these murders have happened and trying to figure out kind of what happened. So we have that as the interesting story that is going on, but there's something else about this mirror, and you're probably wondering, if you look at the cover, you see this eye and you see the spider, right? So is it a spider that's in the mirror? Well, there's something in the mirror, and Ethan kind of gets glimpses of it, but not fully, and he's trying to figure that out too. Like, there's something more in the mirror. So it's a fun story. It's very interesting. I found this book, the story behind this story, I found the story to be very interesting, and I really enjoyed the read. So I'm going to tell you right there that I really liked it. So themes. We'll talk about some of the themes now. Now, one of the things that I always hated back when I was a student was, you pick out themes. You've got your English teacher telling you what themes to pick out of a story. There's going to be a lot of themes, and they're going to, what interests you and what you take away from a story will be different than what I take away from a story. So I'm going to share with you, like, my takeaways. My takeaways may not be your takeaways, which is why I want somebody to talk to about this. But anyway, the obvious theme here is going to be mirrors, right? So we have this guy who can look into mirrors and see the past. But when you look into a mirror, the mirror reflects what is there, but our perception can affect what you see in the mirror, right? So you've got that expression that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And then we have the title of the beholder. So, I mean, that's kind of obvious, right? We're going to have themes of beauty, because that's something people are always trying to chase. They're trying to chase beauty. We've got a lot of that in our society anyway. But who decides what's beautiful? We also have art. So art, you can think of art as something to create as a form of expression. But we've got art patrons who may enjoy the art for the beauty, but then you may also have others who see art as a form of status symbol. So we've got the exclusive party, we've got the patrons, we've got the people who are looking at the art, we've got the artist, we've got, just this whole slew of everything that goes along with this type of society, right? All right, now let's talk about who I think would enjoy this book. So it's a young adult supernatural book. It really doesn't fall into the category of paranormal romance to me, although there is a little bit of there is a bond between Ethan and the guy that helps him in the bathroom. I wouldn't call it a full-on romance, but they do form a bond. So a little bit of paranormal romance, but not really paranormal romance. If you like books that give you very clear-cut answers, you may not like this book, because there's so much you can take away from this book. And a lot of it is up to interpretation, though it does give you a clear ending. Don't get me wrong, there is an ending, but there are areas for interpretation, let's say. I really like it because I feel like it leaves a lot for you to think about and reflect on. So I think that is one of the important things for this book. If you're someone who likes that kind of story, you're going to love it. It's a little bit surreal and strange. So if you like that kind of book, that kind of feeling in a book, you're going to love this book. So I really think that this would appeal to a pretty broad audience. But it is, a little bit niche in that it's a little bit surreal, a little bit open for interpretation, and there's a lot of themes and ideas, and what you take away may not be what I take away. So if you're open to that kind of reflective thought and you like talking to somebody about books, I feel like this one would be good for you, but you need someone to read it with so that you can talk about it. All right, now I'm gonna go into some of my thoughts and some of my spoilery thoughts here. So if you are planning to read this book, stop here. So we have Ethan who can see in the mirror, and he's talking back to himself, really, like the narrator voice. So you have Ethan as the narrator, but then you also have the thoughts told in a second person form. And it's really interesting because you get a lot of information that way, and you can really understand what he's seeing in the mirror when he's talking. And I find it really interesting. And I really want to know what it is that's inside the mirror. So it's like the idea, we'll call this creature the beholder, because I feel like the beholder is kind of our own perceptions. It's like you look into the mirror and you are the beholder, but it's that little part of you that perceives, interprets, and reflects on what you see around you. Okay, so, but there is a monster in the mirror that he's getting these glimpses of. And I find it really interesting because it's like trying to get him, and it's trying to go through. It's almost like a supernatural. It's on the other side, and it wants to come out of this other side of the world that's beyond the mirror and come into our reality. And to do that, it needs vessels. So you can kind of think of this beholder as like another character, if you will. So we've got this guy, Uller, and Uller knows about this creature that's beyond the mirror, and he's trying to summon it. So here we have like this person who wants something. What is he looking for? Power, maybe? Because we did talk about how like you've got status, and you've got wealth, and you've got beauty, and all of these things can be sought after for power. Well, we can think of Uller as that. And then we have the art patrons, and Uller is sort of arranging this. He's setting up these parties, but to what end? So he is creating these parties, and we've got these murders happening. Who's killing the people in the party? Well, all right, this is going to be really spoilery. So really, if you do not want to know, do not watch this. But have you read The Yellow Paper? That's kind of where this gets its inspiration from. So Uller he's got these wallpapers, just certain wallpapers, and he's selling them to people. They're putting them up on their walls, and you can even see Ethan talks about when he's looking at the wallpaper in this first party, like he watches it, he looks at it, and it always seems to change. So we've kind of got this idea that it's driving people mad. And Uller knows about this, right? So he's giving it to people, and then he's having parties at these people's houses, or he's setting it up for these people to be with this wallpaper. And the people go crazy. Maybe they're killing themselves, they're killing each other. This kind of idea is happening, right? But are they the sacrifices? So I kind of interpret it as the patrons, are the sacrifices to this beholder, the creature that's trying to come through. And usually when you have like this idea in stories, you're giving sacrifices to build the strength of the thing, so that it can come through. So it needs a vessel, right? And you have Ethan who can see into the mirror, see beyond, and he can see this creature. So is Uller trying to have Ethan to be the vessel for this creature to come through? So that's kind of where I'm going with this. But then you have the character of Dom. So who is Dom? All right, Dom is it's revealed in the story that he has a history with Uller, and Uller kind of treated him as, you know, as a son, and raised him up and groomed him. And we find out that Dom is an artist, and Uller is using his designs in the wallpaper. So if you can think about that, that's a very personal thing to steal. He's stealing this kid's artwork, putting it into the wallpaper. The people are going crazy, and there's deaths happening, and we're trying to find out, you know, how this is happening, why this is happening, and this is kind of where we're going in this story. So you've got these two kids. You've got Ethan and you've got Dom, and we've got them against Uller. Now, we also have Ethan's grandmother. She's his Yaya, which would be the Greek word for grandmother. And she has this connection with the mirrors, too. So she gets taken. So then you have this whole story, like Uller's trying to find this mirror, which is sort of like the ultimate mirror where this creature would be, and through which this creature could emerge. You've got the patrons who are chasing what? Status, power themselves. Maybe they feel like they're the special chosen ones that are going to be there to be a part of this, almost like a cult. And then you've got Dom and you've got Ethan, and what was the plan for them? So Dom is creating the art that enhances this creature's ability to come through. So then what is Ethan? I think he is supposed to be the vessel that's supposed to accept this creature to come out through him. But what Uller's not counting on is the free will of people. And, you know, Ethan's got other ideas, you know. Okay, so I feel like I'm going to get tangled up in my thoughts, and, you know, maybe my thoughts are not the same as your thoughts. So I really want to know what you're thinking about this book, but that's just kind of some of my thoughts. I read this book last night, so I haven't had a long time to really think about it because I just wanted to talk about it right away. So if you have thoughts on this book, if you've read it, share them below. If you haven't read it, I'm sorry, you've been spoiled. But you were warned. And if you have recommendations, if there's some book that you have read that you want to see what someone else thinks about, leave your suggestions in the comments, okay? Maybe we can form some sort of book club where we share ideas and thoughts. All right. Thank you for watching today.